Alison Rosen. Alison Rosen is your new best friend. Alison, with her good times never end. Alison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Alison Rosen, Alison's your new best friend.
Hey everyone, hi, hello. Welcome to another exciting episode of Alison Rosen is your new best friend. Very excited for my guest today. And yes, I did use the word excited twice. That's how excited I am, 3 times. It is magician, comedian, producer, Food Network host, Justin Willman. He is the creator and the star of Magic for Humans, which is now in its 3rd season on Netflix. He makes regular appearances on late night and daytime TV. He hosts Cupcake Wars, Halloween Wars, and King of Cones on Food Network, and he has created socially distancing magic kits. Did I say that right?
You did. I mean, the intro is really good. This is a really good intro. So the social distancing magician starter kit.
Oh, so then I did it. You lied to me. I think
you just said socially distancing, but it was perfect.
It was.
I mean, there was a ly at the end, but I wouldn't have corrected you if you hadn't asked me.
I would call that room for improvement.
I'd say we're good. I'm going to rename them. I'll fix the typo that I made.
Oh yes. Thank you that's very gracious of you. Justin Willman, hello. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
It's good to be here. I'm doing great. I'm excited for you to be my new best friend.
How does your current best friend feel about it?
I'm curious about the title. It's Alison Rosen is your new best friend. There's no implying though that they are your new best friend.
No, it's pretty one way. That's how
I see.
I feel like as a magician, you should key right in on this. That's how I
respect it.
That's on the back end or whatever it is that you guys call like how you actually do the
we call
illusions.
it, I mean, in magic there's a term called dual reality, which is where 2 different people have 2 different realities of what just happened. They both might be amazed, but one person's reality might be a little bit more impossible than the other. I've already said too much. We're like a minute in. I'm already divulging secrets, but I do respect the one-way psychology.
Sorry, say it again?
No, I said I respect the one-way psychology of the best friend.
Yeah. So
thing.
Wait, let's go back into, I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by the fact that I brought a pen in and I can't find it, but I just found it. And it is important that I have it. So
wouldn't it be cool if I had it? If I had it.
Oh my God.
But I don't. I can't find my pen.
Can you pull it out of my ear or something? I'm sorry if that's like a hacky magic
If we were
thing.
in the same room, I could pull it out of your ear.
Okay.
But
I see it, and it's right next to my wedding ring. Did you do that?
What? This wedding ring?
Oh my God. Hang on a second. Okay. I don't know if I'm more nervous about not having my ring or my pen, but anyway, now I have both.
I think your pen. I think you were more stressed about the pen.
I mean, because I need it. Right now, I need it more. But in general, if I lost, like the ring's insured. This pen is not. It's a great pen.
It's not insured. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to delve more into this dual reality thing. So that applies to audience members, like 2 audience members could have a different interpretation of an illusion?
I mean, this is a deep concept in magic that we're diving into. I would say it is... Okay, let's say one dual reality would be that the person on stage is maybe has... Oh, God, it's hard to explain this without giving you an example.
Do you want to give me an example?
Let's say... I know, but I could give you an example, but then I would get in trouble by the alliance of magicians. You know, Job would show up at my doorstep. Just in some tricks, you know, the trick experience for one person is different than the other. You know, what the audience sees a magician floating as one thing, but the person on stage, maybe they see a little bit more than the audience sees. Maybe they're still impressed, but they maybe know a little bit more about the workings of what's happening than the audience member. I'll give you that much, if that makes any sense.
That totally makes sense. I actually have been wondering, I was watching some of Magic for Humans, which, by the way, my husband Daniel wants me to tell you, you're the only magician he likes.
Wow, I love that.
You probably get that.
What a backhanded compliment. So before me, he would have said, I don't like magicians.
Yeah.
No, but I do. That's my favorite. I think it's the insecure comedian in me that, who focuses on the one audience member not laughing. They become your challenge, your mission.
Right.
So I think as a magician, I'm kind of like, I do love the people who love magic. That's great. But I love converting someone who's like, I would never go to a magic show to be like, no, okay, I would tolerate it. For the right ticket price, I would go.
The weird thing is that in my mind, I have sort of my idea of like the standard guy who doesn't like magic. And that's actually not my husband. So I don't know. But anyway, that was
So when he said this, were you surprised? Were you like, oh, wow, I didn't know that about you?
That you are so judgmental and anti-magic, except for Justin Willman. He yesterday, I told him that I was interviewing you today, and I'm like, he's a magician. He hosts Cupcake Wars, and there wasn't a flicker of recognition. And then today, I was watching some of your videos, and he's like, "Oh, is that the guy you're interviewing? I watch his show on Netflix." And then later, he's like, "Oh, tell him he's like the only magician I like." So I don't know.
Love that. And it's so funny that doesn't seem like a crazy statement. But if someone was like, oh, Bon Jovi, that's the only musician I like.
Right.
If someone had only one musician that they liked, James Joyce, that's the only author I like.
Right.
Magic is such a narrow little art form that it's like, I can like one of them without it being socially unusual.
So I do want to get into that more, but I was watching Magic for Humans, and I was watching like the one, and say, I'm not trying to get you to tell me how this is done, but for example, the trick. Do you call it a trick? You call it a trick, right?
I call it tricks, yeah.
The trick
tricks.
with the helmet that they're wearing that makes them really smart. Would someone in that bit have a different reality than, say, me watching it?
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, slightly. Without giving too much away, like the girl who recited Pi, like she doesn't know how she did it. She doesn't know necessarily how that information came to her. However, it did. So for her, like it's a different reality for her. For someone watching, it's like, well, we have nothing to go off of. We're not in that helmet. We're not you.
Right.
Like the girl solving the Rubik's Cube doesn't know how she solved the Rubik's Cube, but if she would maybe describe the experience differently than her friend who was watching it.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how it is sometimes in magic. But I feel like there's also that experience with, live comedy versus watching a special. Like you can watch a special and you're like, this is not funny. But the people there are all dying, like when you're there watching it in person, it's like, it's electric because you're connecting,
Yeah.
So I think watching comedy on TV is kind of like watching magic on TV where you're naturally like a mile away from it. So you really have to somehow, make up that difference. And it can be hard. And sometimes it doesn't happen.
I feel like you do a really good job of it.
Well, thank you. I try to exploit the thing that you can do on TV that you maybe can't do on stage is like proximity. Like, and what we're able to do on Zoom here, is as opposed to if it was just audio, like we're trying to bridge the gap here and connect. So like on TV, you can do stuff that's plays much smaller, is intimate, or people will forget that they're being filmed. Like no one will ever, if I get somebody up on stage, they'll never forget that they're on stage. There's bright lights. You can hear people laughing and you can't stop thinking about that everyone's looking at you. But when you're filming with people on the streets, I try to have the cameras backed up a little bit just so it's not always up in your face so that people behave like humans as much as possible. Kids are great at forgetting that there's a camera there, and kids will very quickly just behave normal and say whatever they want, which is a beautiful thing.
Right. Why do you think that is? Because I'm wondering, is it because for a kid, they're around authority figures and people who are sort of telling them what to do all the time. So being just in the world around adults or school is not that different than being on a show where something is expected of you.
Well, kids are naturally, I think, more unfiltered and idealistic and especially enamored by magic, and I think adults, like, we're so jaded by, we've seen so many shows where, they make the person look stupid, or, you could imagine, we've all watched stuff where we're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that isn't me, cringy, like they must be so embarrassed. So as soon as there's a camera rolling, we're going to be on TV, we're instantly thinking like, everyone I know is going to see this. Oh God, it's going to live forever. How does my hair look? Is my shirt okay? Don't say anything stupid. And I think kids just don't think about that kind of thing.
Right. That's
maybe in Hollywood, like sometimes we'll run into kids, and like a lot of the kids you run into or that we try to maybe do a bit with on the show are like also happen to be aspiring child actors. And it's like, if you can't get them to turn that off and just behave normal, it just doesn't feel good. It feels plastic.
Do you think there's a typical magician personality, and do you have it?
There's like, interesting. I must have, obviously I am a magician. I love magic. I nerd out over it. So there's like, I have maybe this more basic personality trait that magicians must have. But I think like there's like the cliches if you think about magicians, and, I don't want to like try to project these cliches more, but, there's a little bit of a nerdy, maybe sometimes creepy thing. And I feel like, because it's like, I know I became a magician, like I gravitated to magic because I was socially awkward, and also, like not just around girls, but just kind of like, I didn't really have a clique that I fit in. So I'm like kind of always grappling with like, how do I say what you want me to say? How do I kind of be cool? How do I act normal? How do I make it look like I'm not trying? And magic is this art form where, you can be alone for a little while, learn these things, practice, and then you can figure out what you're going to say at different parts of a trick. And then when you're doing it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of conversing and interacting with people, but I've already done this in my head. I kind of know what to say, what to do, and I know how this trick's going to end. So it's a little bit of control in the world where we have no control. So I know I have that. Not every magician, of course, like gets into magic for that purpose, or at least, is a part of it. But that for me was something. So there can be a socially awkward personality trait of magicians, and it's not everybody, and that's kind of partially a cliche, but I know for me it was a thing. And I think I went to magic camp as a kid, by the way, so it's like a bunch of these socially awkward kids in their socially awkward prime, and somehow like it's a beautiful, everyone's socially awkward together, so there's no like, sure, there's the cool kid at magic camp, but for the most part it's like you're kind of amongst your own. When you think of a magician personality, I'm sure your husband would have a very specific answer about whatever trait it is that he despises about magicians. I'm curious.
I feel that you and my husband have got off on the wrong. You and I are fine, but you and he have got off on the wrong foot.
I love your husband.
Okay.
I love your husband.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It's not a wrong foot if he said that he likes me.
That's true. But I feel like you have an understandable magician's loyalty and defensiveness, and that I hadn't factored in when I relayed that compliment.
Well, I love magic and I love magicians. However, I'm also like a magic snob. So there's tons of magic that I hate, and there's a lot of magicians that I just don't like. Like the way they do things grates on me, know?
I think those are the ones that he doesn't like.
Yeah, like my wife, like when we go to the Magic Castle, we're with some friends and it's supposed to be fun. Like I am a squirmy mess in a bad magic show because it like pains me, like just like I'm like I'm trying to think of, it's probably like somebody watching their favorite sports team just lose, point after point after point. And you're just kind of feeling every fist. Because I know that people, like what we talked about earlier, I know that people don't see live magic a lot. And I know that people are judging the entire art form often based on what they see in that night at the Magic Castle. They might not see magic in person for 5 more years. So I get so precious about people's experience and opinion about magic. So maybe your husband feels that way because of a a crappy night at the Magic Castle.
I should
I don't
find
know.
out why he feels that way. I feel like,
Yeah.
is there, you might know about this, is there like a museum under a building that has a bunch of magic stuff? Is that ringing a bell? 'Cause I feel like,
Well, the Magic Castle has a basement. There's a part of it that they call the museum,
no, it's,
where it's some artifacts.
yeah. You know
I'm
what?
not sure.
This is not about him. I've made it about him, but it's not about him. I think the reason I was asking, so my dad was very, very good friends with Harry Blackstone Jr., and we used to spend holidays with them. And in his act, there was like, the thing that my dad always made me aware of in his act was the crowd control. Like when he invites a whole bunch of people up on stage to do the birdcage trick, he needs to be dominating that situation.
Yes.
And so I think of a magician as someone who is able to dominate a situation. And I don't mean like be domineering, but I just mean have excellent crowd control, dominate, be in power or control. And so I, just to fully put, no pun, to lay my cards out, I was wondering what it would be like to interview a magician, because obviously in interviewing there has to be a level of trust to have like an honest exchange. But in watching you, I didn't get the sense that it would actually be problematic, because you seem like and I listened to you on podcasts, and so I've sort of like familiarized myself with you. You seem very open and honest. But I just wondered how that would work. And then also there is sort of the pop culture notion we have of magicians that you had mentioned earlier, of like they're a little bit creepy, or they're a little bit, my sentence tailed off. But
the control thing, I think the confidence that it takes to, like, what needs to happen. A magician knows what needs to happen in a situation for a thing to work. So just like a good comic will shut down a heckler if it's going to derail a joke, like in magic, obviously you want everything to feel loose and free and natural. But if somebody throws a wrench into the gears, it's like magician has to by force steer this thing back in the right direction. So it's funny you say Harry Blackstone Jr. So he's the first magician I ever saw as a kid.
Oh, really?
I think I was maybe 5, 6 years old at the Fox Theater in St. Louis, Missouri. And he was just, incredible. Mm-hmm. He had this booming voice, but he would do, like you said, the vanishing birdcage trick on stage. And he would do it once, make it disappear. Then he'd go get a second cage. And then he would invite all the kids up from the audience to put their hands on the cage. And I remember being one of those kids. I couldn't wait. And I was like just a little prick. Because I remember intentionally trying to hook my finger in between the wires of this cage. I don't know what I was thinking, like, as a challenge to him, like, I dare you to make this cage disappear if I'm really holding on to it. Mm-hmm. And I just remember him just kind of just being like, and and I remember going like, ow.
Oh, did it pinch you?
A little bit, but the cage vanished, and I'm sure he's used to kids like me trying to be a little jerk, trying to mess up the trick, and he just knows what he is doing. So I think that is a good point about there's a control, there's a confidence, and kind of a power stance that a magician needs to take in a situation to make it go right. And I think it takes years to make that power domineering part be invisible, and only come out when it needs to, for example. So I think I've spent years trying to take the unappealing aspects of whatever magic personality traits I've inherited and, diminish them and only have them, show themselves when necessary. Mm-hmm. So that's why I try to be an open book. I found that a magician who, like this kind of flawless, all-powerful magician, like you're just setting yourself up for the time where something goes wrong and you look like an idiot. So I find this much more human, fallible thing to not just be, easier to pull off because stuff will go wrong and you could, roll with it and laugh it off. But I just think it makes you more human. And maybe that's something that magicians take a little while to learn how to do, is to be doing magic, but also feel like you're a human being, a normal person. Yeah.
Why did you name the show Magic for Humans?
Well, it wasn't the first title I had. The show went through a few. Like I wanted to at one point like call it Justin Wonders, kind of, so it's the show's my wonders of magic, but also like wonders, like a curious quest for knowledge, because that's, as the show became the show where we explore a theme every episode and we try to use magic as the foot in the door to whatever these like human condition themes are. It's kind of this curious quest. That's, I think, just when Magic for Humans came about, it was like, well, it's a show about being human, but also it's magic for humans, which means everybody, to have it be a show that kind of is, a big warm hug. Just kind of felt like the right name. Yeah.
And I heard you say that this show kind of grew out of a few attempts that didn't go. Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah. Well, like I've been in LA since 2001. So
from
19
St. Louis?
years now.
Or no, you were in Boston,
Well, I went
right?
to Emerson College in Boston, yeah, and then moved out here for my second semester of my senior year. And then I think, everyone, especially when we came out here, I lived with my best friend, Dan Levy, who's a stand-up comedian, and I would kind of go with him and we would do comedy nights and stuff. And you just hear left and right about, oh my God, he got a development deal. She's making a pilot, all these things. And it feels so attainable, So pretty quick, you're kind of like trying to come up with what's your thing, what's your show. And obviously I was way too green and ready for it at that point. And then finally, fast forward, it was probably 15 years later, I got a pilot on Comedy Central called Sleight of Mouth. It was kind of like a Chappelle show format on stage, doing a trick for an audience, but then tossed into clips. And they didn't pick it up, but they aired it. And then we did another one that was kind of like a show where I solve America's problems, kind of like Colbert Report magic thing. But it just felt not fully authentic because, something about making magic divisive, and political, it kind of felt like, why are you taking this pure thing and making half the audience hate you for it? So, but it was a good learning experience. And those, but each one of those had a little nugget of something that was some good. So I just kind of got rid of the bad and took the good and kind of balled it up and repitched it to Netflix. And it was like the right place at the right time.
Did you feel ground down by that process? And I know that you went to rehab, right, when you were 25?
I did. Yeah.
And you had, so that was on Alexi Wasser's podcast that I heard that. And you were
Yes.
starting to talk about just like how you sort of got into doing drugs and your experience of coming to LA. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, did that have to do with feeling rejected?
I think it had to do with, I think it had to do at first with feeling like I needed some sort of a leg up, like like a productivity boost, kind of like there's more that I want to do. I need to do this. How do I keep up? How do I succeed when all these people around me seem to be more talented, or it seems like they have more hours in the day. So that's when kind of like, the uppers or the speed kind of seems like a good solution at the time. And then very quickly, and it fools you into thinking it is for a very brief time. And then it very quickly becomes like, wow, I did nothing today but that. That's not good. And
How quickly did that happen?
A month or two,
Wow.
a couple months. Yeah. But then it kind of becomes this crutch that you don't know how to, you don't know how to wean off of. There's never a good time, But I it's funny. I don't know that it came from, I'm sure some of it, I'm sure there's a lot of like control issues a part of that, and kind of just wanting to be able to be the master of your own domain, and, the cover up your insecurities that hold you back, or your laziness. I've never been lazy, but I would always beat myself up for it, not beat myself up for not doing as many things as I know I could get done. But nothing good happened until like after I was 25, after rehabbing, and things kind of really, that's when magically that things kind of started to come into fruition. So
what was your experience in rehab like?
I loved it. Like I'm sure just like people who smoke, and you're like, I want to quit smoking, but you make up in your head how bad quitting smoking is going to be, and how, I'm going to feel really crappy for so long. There's never a good time to do this. I don't want to be, I'm going to be so hard to be around. Like, you make up how bad it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it's that bad. It's like, the addiction trying to stick around and kind of play a mind game on you into thinking that you can't get by without it. So for me, like, I was kind of hiding this thing for so long. I mean, there's a lot of parallels to magic here. Like, obviously being kind of a master manipulator, secret keeper. And, as a magician, you keep secrets. So I was kind of like keeping these secrets from the people close to me in real life. And it was a chance to, and it's a burden you carry around with you. It's so much stress thinking about, what you've told one person to cover up this or that. So it was a chance to just like, come clean. It was a big weight lifted. And to be able to like say, because I have, I've got too many shows to go to rehab. But it's like, okay, we're going to have you buddies, you cover these shows for me. This. I'm going to vanish for a couple months. And it was just a beautiful load off and a chance to just work on yourself.
And did you check yourself in, or was there an intervention?
There was a little intervention with my girlfriend at the time and my family that kind of, the jig was up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was just such a relief. Yeah.
To not be living with that secret.
Exactly.
And to not be like having to manage it.
And just to not feel like you're, being held hostage by something, that you kind of hate. You hate that you are so strong and confident and ambitious in all these other areas, but that you're, kind of just, you're just a lackey, you're to this other thing that nobody sees, Mm-hmm. So it was very freeing.
Do you consider yourself an insecure person? Because you really don't seem insecure at all, but you said something earlier about, feeling like you didn't fit in or didn't know how to handle social situations as a youngster. I
mean, I am. I think that I am. In certain ways, I'm not. Like, I've got a healthy confidence, but I feel like there's this, I guess it's imposter syndrome where, you're kind of thrust into this world and you move to Los Angeles and you're a little fish in this huge pond. And when good things start to happen, you kind of, I think at first it's a good thing to feel like, oh my God, am I good enough? Like, I think that the flip side is like, yeah, I deserve this. Every little good thing that happens. Yes, that's right. More, bring it on. Right. I feel like, there was always a little bit of like, well, I'm not the best magician. For a while I was, very hacky and very just kind of like derivative and, like watching those old tapes back, I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I, thought this was good. But I know that I was kind of insecure about it at the time. And it just took a while to, to shed insecurities and be confident to be totally just real and authentic and kind of show your cracks, mm-hmm. make that what makes it special.
Derivative and hacky, in
my jokes, in my choice of material, performance wise, like in magic, there's a lot of magicians can get away. Like there's a reason why, if you go to the Magic Castle, you might, if you go 1 week and you go a week later, you might be like, I feel like I saw some of the same tricks. Because there's like, in magic, you can get by buying existing tricks that are out there and kind of just doing it the way magicians do it. And because people don't see magicians a lot, they might never they might never know the fact that you're doing a trick that is not original, and you can get by in your own little bubble. You know, if you're a magician doing local gigs in Seattle, no one you perform for will ever know that you're kind of doing, you know, you've kind of ripped off somebody else's trick, and you can coast by that. And also just, you know, like doing hacky low hanging fruit jokes that get laughs and people don't know that they're not your jokes, like all those things that in you know, when you're a big fish in a small pond might fly. You know, but you kind of don't feel good, at least, you know, you don't feel good if you're doing material that is not original. Nothing feels better than like shedding something that maybe works, but coming up with crafting something that is unique and your own. So yeah, that's kind of what I got by doing for a while until I kind of saw the light, you know, and I had enough good friends who were comics that I would tour with and stuff, and they would just, you know, call me out on my BS jokes or whatever, one-liners that I would fall back on to get a laugh and write new stuff.
When you think up a new trick, do you are there people you work with to design stuff, or like do you do everything yourself? How does that work?
For my live show, like it's a lot of solitary stuff, but I've got a little brain trust of people who I'll bounce ideas off of or pick their brain, and you know, people much smarter than me who will give me great guidance. And then for Magic for Humans, you know, it's a fun creative process because we'll have the writing period, which will be me, one other magician who's kind of my co-executive producer who is a genius, and then like 5 or 6 comedy writers who have no magic knowledge whatsoever, but get how magic can be funny. And we'll kind of write the season, not knowing how we're going to pull any of it off. We'll write for 2-3 months, and then we'll get like the magic brain trust together. And it's maybe, you know, 8 to 10 magicians. Many of them I've known my whole life. And each one of them is kind of like an Avenger who has like a very specific specialty. And we'll just figure out how to pull this stuff off, or write a new version of it that is achievable. And I love that, because I love having the show not be written with constraints in mind, you know. Oh, well, we don't know how to do that, so we're not even going to bother pitching that idea. It's kind of fun to have a blue sky and then narrow it in, because you'll definitely have stuff that ends up on screen that, you know, hasn't been done before that way.
I love the video series that you have been doing during quarantine with your son. Those are great.
Thank you.
In each of them, he kind of messes up the trick, and then we see how it's done, right?
Right.
How did that, was that the intention at the beginning? Did that just happen, and then you're like, this is great, I'm going to go with it?
That was kind of a happy accident, maybe 2 or 3 of the videos in, because as soon as the camera was rolling, like he automatically like tried not to smile, would get really weird and like introverted. And I think the first one where he busted the trick was like pulling the diaper out of the cup, and I kind of,
so you pour water into a cup and then the water magically disappears.
Right. And then he, staring into that cup, reaches in and pulls out a diaper, and you see that's how the trick worked. Diapers are absorbent. I mean, the tricky part about it is coming up with tricks that, like inventing how a trick might work that is not really how a magician would ever do that trick in the real world. Because in magic, you can get very testy about the exposure of tricks.
I wondered about that. So you're revealing fake magic that actually works.
Yes.
Wow.
Kind of like, you know, and that's what Penn and Teller would kind of do for years. They were always the bad boys of magic, where, you know, they'd have this reputation of revealing the tricks, but it was always a trick or an illusion that they invented for the purposes of, and often how it was done is a little more like Rube Goldberg-y and impractical than a magician would ever do. So, that was the fun part to figure out for those videos with Jackson, was what are tricks that I wouldn't be, you know, getting magician enemies from.
So I know that you grew up in St. Louis. What are your parents like?
Well, my mother, and she passed away a couple months ago, but she was.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, she had Alzheimer's for a decade, so it was something that we'd all been kind of mentally and emotionally preparing for. She was an interior designer and very, very like artist, like very, just exciting, flamboyant, and like late to everything, not really like adapting to the like the real world. But she was a very successful interior designer, but like such a what side of the brain would it be? Such a right brain?
I think the creative one
The creative side of the brain.
left brain, I think.
Whichever side it is. So enthusiastic about, not just her design, but just like school projects and this, and, would help me paint posters when I'm running for treasurer, and like loved the magic, like was so supportive of the magic, very much fueled this kind of like, you can do anything you want to do, creative, whatever, you're talented, I love everything you're doing type of thing. And then my dad, also very supportive of the magic, but kind of from a business side of things, it was like, okay, well, we should make business cards, and you should have flyers up, and you could be doing gigs at birthday parties and stuff. And he would chauffeur me around. So he was like, he didn't have the tools to necessarily nurture the creative aspect of it, but absolutely could see the entrepreneurial aspect of it. He was a airline pilot for years, so he would travel a lot. So I would be, he would be gone 3-4 days of the week. So it was kind of my mom running the ship, and she was kind of loose and lax with discipline and everything, and my sister and I would kind of a little bit run amok and take advantage of it, but we loved it. So I kind of grew up as a mama's boy for sure. But my dad, they very much had non-overlapping skill sets to impart on their children, so it was a good thing. Yeah.
How are you doing with the grief? And I have to ask, because at the beginning of the lockdown, one of my listeners lost her mother, not from COVID, but still. I still sometimes do shows where I take calls and I ask people, how are you guys doing with COVID and all this? And so she reached out to me. She said that she wanted to call, but just couldn't bring herself to leave a message, but she was really struggling with losing her mom, who she was very close to. And I tried to connect her with other listeners that who've lost parents recently, and it's just been on my mind. And you lost your mom a couple of months ago. How are you doing?
Well, I mean, grief wise, obviously it was like very, very difficult and shocking at first, no matter how mentally prepared you think you are. But like Alzheimer's is such a slow burn that before you know it, like, even just thinking back on the past couple years, like 3 years ago versus 2 and 1, like, just the deterioration of who she is socially and the things that she remembers, and seeing kind of how much stress it puts on her to not be a burden in social situations and trying to keep up or pretend like she's following along, and you see that eventually go. So there's just a lot of this strain on her. So the comforting thing is knowing that there's no more suffering, like knowing that every day was very much confusion filled, when you're dealing with Alzheimer's, and you just can't help but like just empathize so much about like, oh God, I mean, and also, like my dad was a real champion in the past couple of years being her caretaker, but just knowing that she doesn't have to, be confused and deteriorate even worse is a relief. So that focusing on that and being grateful for that there's no more pain and stress anymore is helpful with the grief. I know a lot of people when they lose a parent, especially if it comes suddenly or if it's, cancer or something that, they're otherwise healthy and with it, and there's this thing that's just invading their body. I feel like that would be even more difficult in terms of the grief. I mean, with Alzheimer's, the grief is stretched out over 10 years. So maybe collectively, like it's it was pretty awful seeing it go over the years, and you kind of anticipate it. And,
Right,
my
but you've
sister and
been-
I, lots of tears, just kind of like seeing little snippets of your mom's personality vanish. And so it's kind of grieving 1,000 times over the course of 10 years makes that final grief maybe not as, burdensome. But
Right.
I mean, it's the hard thing is not, because of COVID, like not having it be safe to go home, to see my dad and, and to see my sister. I mean, luckily technology makes it pretty powerful to connect from afar.
Right. Not
Yeah.
the same though.
Not the same though. Not the same.
Yeah. So many years ago, I lost a friend to suicide and was very, very devastated by that. And I remember a therapist, and then I became very worried about deaths of everyone close to me. And I remember a therapist saying, you can't really prepare for someone's death. Because I think I had this idea that, like, if I grieve, I think my dad is still here, but he had some health problems and was sick, and I don't know, it was so long ago, but I think that maybe I was like, I'm gonna prepare now for it. And then she was like, it's gonna hurt no matter what. Like, you can't get out of that.
Yeah, I'm with the Alzheimer's. It's weird because for many, many years, it's kind of invisible. Like I used to say, like, oh yeah, she's had Alzheimer's. It's it's moderate, but she could fool you for a couple minutes in conversation. Like if it's loose small talk. So you kind of and physically great, spry, and so it's a real psychological brain trip because it's like just there beneath the surface.
I would call it a mind fuck.
Let's call it a mind fuck. It's a mind fuck until it becomes impossible to ignore anymore,
Yeah.
But you can't prepare for it. I mean, it's good to think about losing the people that you love so that you don't take the time you have with them for granted, like it's, if anything, like that's a gift that I got, at least knowing that it's, coming within the next few years, knowing your mom's probably not going to live till 100 makes you really cherish, these memories. And it makes them emotional when they're happening because, you're kind of experiencing like just a lovely dinner with like all this foresight, like, well, what if this is the last lovely dinner, because when you live at different places, you don't see your parents as much. So I think that's a good part about, knowing memento moriing, the people that you love. And now just being a dad, and I just turned 40 last month. Not that I'm, think I'm gonna, but I used to never think about my own mortality. So that also becomes a thing. My wife and I were really swept up in the sad story of, Amanda Klutz and her husband, Nick Cordero, who's a Broadway star. And
Yes.
got COVID early on and just, was in the hospital for 90 to 100 days, all these complications and in a coma. And he was so young, he was my age. So it was hard to see that because he was otherwise healthy. And all of a sudden, the COVID and pneumonia, all these complications, it's like, wow, like it really, like nobody is safe from just the Reaper, and so it kind of made you really think about like, okay, like time's a wasting, make the most. The gift of the quarantine, I think, has just been that, normally I'm traveling every weekend, and maybe missing these little milestones with my son and missing the bedtime stories and everything. And while it is tough not having, babysitters or nannies and, like not having a break, you do, like we've had I don't even know how many days it's been, but 5 months of nightly bedtimes and wake ups. And so that's, he won't remember that, unfortunately. He won't remember what a good dad I was in 2020, but
You gotta
I will,
remind him.
I will. Oh, I will.
How old is he?
He just yesterday turned 20 months.
Oh.
You know how you do the months. And
Yeah. So he's 4 months shy of 2.
4 months shy of 2.
So he's
doing things.
nice.
He's on the cusp, I hope, of a vocabulary breakthrough. Right now he's got Mama Dada, Ball, Agua, Luna. I think that might be it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old, so 1.5.
Okay, yeah.
And my first started talking like around 1, I'd say. I mean, not a lot, but he did. But then Owen, my second, he only has a few words, and I'm starting to wonder. Maybe together they'll have a breakthrough.
Owen is his name?
Owen is his name, yeah.
Yeah, we're in that same boat where we're kind of like, oh, man, you know, we've heard that they should be talking more by now.
Right.
He understands everything. He knows all these words.
Right.
We do flashcards, and he'll point to almost like he's bored with it. Yes, banana, monkey, this. Let's go play with balls.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll emote soon.
Right. I bet he will. So I have some questions here from, so I'm on Patreon. Patreon.com/Alison Rosen is where you go for behind the scenes stuff, bonus episodes, etc. And I take questions there, and then I also take them on Twitter, and we have a little song.
I saw on Twitter you had some good ones.
Yes.
When we ask, they send them in. They're wondering how you have been. So thanks so much for answering these questions from our fans.
All right. Jonas Reyes would like to know which of his magic tricks was the most complicated to pull off.
Okay. Jonas. I mean, they're all hard. And like and you know, when you had asked before, like, was that grinding or something? I think you were referring to the failed pilot success. That was like, you know, that wasn't grinding because there was like no loss of enthusiasm. It was in making a season of Magic for Humans. Like, that is a very difficult physical, emotional grind, because we're like, with Magic, you can't just like write the script and then go out and do it, because you don't know what bit's gonna be good. You don't know what trick's gonna be good until you do it in the real world. You don't know what the killer first trick is in an episode of the last bit. And Magic is hard, and often, like, when there's a trick we're doing where it feels like, oh, got it, this is gonna be easy. Like, I now know that should be a red flag, that it's either bad, won't be impressive, or full. Like, nothing. None of the real good ones that people talk about are easy. So let me think of a good example of a really hard one. I mean, season 3, in the first episode, we did a bit where we tried to influence the influencers and, you know, try to subliminally influence them to all make the same decision. And that was like really hard, because it was like this, you know, very, you know, it's kind of, mentalism is the genre of Magic. So it's not like you're tangibly building something. You're kind of like, you know, we had these Venn diagrams and like kind of like a, you know, like tracking a serial killer, strings on the wall, just to try to paint the picture of what it is we're trying to get them to do. So this was just a complicated, complex thing. And we, you know, only could do it once. You know, you can't really do it once and be like, okay, let's do it all again, because
Right.
once they know what you're up to. So that was really hard, and we got really lucky. Trick wise, like, you know, season 1 of the show, I did a bit where I lured people into the back of a van and told them that I was going to remove their NSA chips. So it was kind of like, you know, feeding into people's conspiracy theories, thinking that, you know, that I didn't realize how many people think that we've either been microchipped or that the government is out to microchip them.
Dude, that's what COVID is about.
It's
about the
scary.
vaccine.
It's about the vaccine. Well, it was very easy to get people to think that I was legit. I mean, and I have this little device that I made. It was like a modified penis pump, you know, to remove these things. So this was a hard trick, because I tried it twice in both of the Comedy Central pilots, because I just thought it'd be funny to do psychic surgery, which is this old kind of premise where you're removing stuff from people with a trick, but do it about NSA chips. And we took a while just to get the trick to look right and figure out the technique. So that was a really hard one. But again, like it was so hard, but felt so good to get it right eventually. Maybe 5 years in the works.
Okay.
Thanks, Jonas.
You thought Jonas was done, but he's just getting started. He also says, my son loves the 2 social distancing magician starter kits that Justin sold online these past few months. Would he ever start selling other magic kits as monthly subscription crates? But I want to insert my own question in there, which is, can you tell us about these magic kits?
Oh, yeah. So early on in quarantine, which feels like forever ago, but March, the world's going through this thing and you kind of feel like, oh God, I should be doing something to help. What do I do? But we're not supposed to leave the house. And I've always been wanting to make a magic kit because 2 reasons. One, I got a magic kit for my birthday when I was a kid. That's what sparked, my life. But a lot of magic kits are kind of crappy, or maybe there's a good trick or two in it, but the instructions are really hard to read. They're translated from English to Chinese back to English or something. Like it's like the stuff that is geared towards teaching a 7-year-old magic is very disheartening. So I remember just, you kind of feel like I must be dumb or I'm doing it wrong. Anyway, I'd always wanted to make a magic kit, just never had the time to sit down and like curate it. So thanks COVID for the time. So I made the social distancing magician starter kit to raise money for directrelief.org, but also just like, put together a bunch of good tricks. And then, so around the house for the next month, once I had this idea, my wife helped me shoot all the instructional. So as opposed to having read instructions, I have ADD. I do not want to read instructions. So there's no instructions. You get like a little link to a website, and then there's a bunch of homemade videos of me teaching the tricks, or
that's really cool.
me and my like me doing it for my wife. And she's, in some of the videos, she kind of looks like a hostage. Like, I do not want to be up against the bookcase here watching a card trick, but it worked great. And people love them. So then I made a second kit because people are like, I want to learn more magic. So now I got 2 kits.
That's so cool. So this show,
will I do more? I don't know. It's a lot of work because I don't want to do it unless I do it right. So. Right. I mean, we'll see how long this pandemic goes on. Maybe I'll be like, okay, we're going to do a subscription. Please, I need to connect with the world. But it's fun watching, parents tag me in the videos of their kids doing magic over Zoom for their grandparents, and it's really sweet.
What age are they for, would you say?
I mean, it's there's a lot of parents and adults who buy them for themselves. I'd say it's age 6 and up, 7 and up. Mm-hmm.
And if they want to see these magic kits, and if you want to see this whole video will be on YouTube, youtube.com/Alison Rosen. You can go find it there. Okay. Jonathan Feldman says, as a magician himself, how does he approach watching the illusions of others? Does he prefer to keep the illusion a mystery to himself, or does he work on figuring out how it's done?
Good question. I mean, that's one of the things about magic is, as a magician, it's really hard to watch it as a layperson, as a non-magician ever again, because you know how most of the things work. So I try the best I can to like just watch like a normal person, because when I get fooled, I love it. Like, it's really great. It reminds you, it's that feeling of like awe watching Harry Blackstone Jr. make a birdcage that disappear as a kid, and then eventually you learn how all the things work, so you can never not know. But sometimes, and very often, luckily I'm friends with a bunch of incredible magicians who will do things that fool me, or I'll see Penn and Teller or David Blaine do something that just like, I don't know. Now, I do eventually want to know, because it's kind of like a, holy shit, that fooled me. Okay, let me think hard about this. Like Darren Brown, brilliant British mentalist and magician, his stuff is so just diabolical and fooling, because I feel like when something fools you, I like to appreciate it, soak that in, and then figure out what I can learn from it. Like, what did they do to create such a beautiful mystery? Not to ruin it for myself, but just to see what the technique or the scripting, or how was I misdirected in a way that made that a beautiful moment of wonder for me. Yeah.
Will magicians always tell each other how you guys do it?
No, not always. I mean, sometimes they will, but a lot of times magicians know if they have something that is a magician fooler, that they will try to guard that secret as long as they can. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, this is a fill in the blank. Whitney C says, this is for you. I can have a little blank as a treat. Question mark. How would you fill in that blank?
I can have a little blank as a treat. I can have a little nap as a treat. Now that's I can't. That's the thing. I haven't napped in a very long time, but it sounds nice. It sounds like a treat.
But what a treat it would be if you
What
could.
a treat.
Yeah. Okay, Jennifer says, and I'll have to explain this one. I am sure everyone will want to know his take on bar flair versus juggling versus card shuffling awkwardness, as well as what the exact name of the card shuffle that you wanted to learn. Okay, this has been an ongoing thing on my show. On a recent episode, I shared that I've always wanted to be able to do cool card shuffling, like where you just like accordion the cards like that. So first of all, what is the name of that shuffle?
Like,
do you know what I mean?
Like just the classic?
No,
or
like where you go like where you shoot them from. I had heard actually from, I'm pretty sure it was from Bellamy Blackstone, Harry Blackstone's daughter, that it's called the Russian shuffle because one card is Russian after the next.
That's one of the jokes I used to use in my hacky days.
Oh, maybe she was just doing a joke.
I think she was doing a joke, but they call it a. Well, there's the dribble the cards. Can you? Then they call it you do the snake where it looks like a snake. But this one is riffle the cards. Can you? Riffle?
Oh, riffle.
Crap,
Maybe that's right.
I can't even know the basic word here. Springing the cards.
Do you have a deck of cards right
I'm
there?
looking. Let me see. Where are they?
Because I'll wait.
Let me see here. Hold on. I must.
You guys, this is what I've been waiting for. It's about to get good.
Oh, okay. Just dropped them. I just sprung them. Okay, it's not a full deck.
That's okay.
Allison.
You're not playing with them.
Oh, that was embarrassing. Yeah.
But it's still, did you, I mean, just the sound got me excited.
Trying to hold it up high enough to see, yeah. That's the idea.
That's so cool. What's the snake one?
The snake one, I don't really like. There's a whole genre of magic. It's magic juggling called cardistry.
Cardistry.
Like artistry, but cardistry.
I want to be a
where
cardist.
They do stuff like that. So it's like the snake is kind of like holding the deck and like where the cards kind of like create a little. They look like a snake. And then there's just.
Oh my God.
That's the vomiting the cards. That's I used to do that in my act in my hacky days. I'd say I'm up to 2 packs a day. Gotta.
That's so cool.
Fun. Yeah.
Thank you.
So bar flair card shuffles and juggling.
So I shared with my friends on the show that I have always wanted to be able to like do cool shuffling like this because wouldn't that be so cool? And then my friend Wendy, a writer for Bob's Burgers, was like, "Wait a minute, cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Honestly, if you did that, if I came over and then all of a sudden you did that." The next time I saw someone who knows both of us, I would be like, I have to tell you what just happened with Allison, like what's going on with her. And then I don't know how it turned into this, but somehow the question became, which is the weirdest thing? You go to someone's house, which is the weirdest one for them to do? Like you're just in their kitchen hanging out and all of a sudden they're like doing doing cardistry, A. B, they just like all of a sudden start juggling fruit. Or C, they all of a sudden start doing bar flair. Like, which is the weirdest? But
well, it all depends on the context. If someone's making a smoothie and they start juggling fruit before they do it, awesome. Wow, I have a cool friend. If someone's making you a cocktail, all of a sudden they're doing bar flair, awesome. I have a cool friend. Oh, let's play cards. Oh, and you're doing cool shuffles. Wow,
no,
I have a cool. But if it's out of context and you're not doing anything related to any of that. I think any of them could feel strange. I would say, I mean, just doing something about bar flair maybe out of nowhere feels like, are you making a drink? We're not drinking? Okay, then what the hell are you doing? Like that feels a little strange.
Like you're just showing off.
But maybe I'm just jealous because that's the only one I can't do.
Have you tried?
I have not tried.
I bet you could do it.
Well, hey, quarantine is a time to start a new hobby. So that could be one of them.
That's right. Okay. Some questions that came in on Twitter. Carl Schweitzer says, a lot of magic tricks seem to be a variation on tricks others have done in the past, but I know magicians do create new ones. Which original magic trick is he most proud of, and which ones are the most difficult to pull off?
Great. Which original trick am I most proud of? I mean, it's funny because I often get most proud. I get very proud of really clever adaptations of old things, like, season 1 we recreated the marshmallow test, the Stanford marshmallow experiment with the marshmallow and can the kid wait?
Right.
And we kind of incorporated it with a cup, which is just the old like cup and ball trick, but putting it in that new context, like that to me was really satisfying. Like, oh wow, we reinvented this old thing, But what new? Very rarely is something under the sun completely new and never been done. But I will say, gosh, they're all my babies. I love them all. I think the microchip thing, what started out as like wanting to be a riff on psychic surgery, ended up being this thing that kind of felt new, like with a penis pump, seeing a microchip burst through someone's skin like that. I don't know if it was still in the psychic surgery realm at that point. And I think that's what's cool about an original idea can come out of what wasn't an original idea at the beginning, but the problem solving it takes to pull off that thing ends up becoming something that, oh wow, it's not even that anymore. It's like never been done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nigel Grant says, not a question, but just as important, please thank Justin for donating his cameo earnings to the Sonia V. Willman Alzheimer's Research Foundation, as well as helping COVID-19 relief charities by selling items on his website store. He is a good man.
Oh, Nigel, thanks. I appreciate it.
Is that your mom?
No, it's not. Oh, yeah. Sonia V. Willman is my mom. Yes. Yes.
Was that your mom tweeting?
Nigel's my mom.
Sean M., what is your favorite bit on the show and why is it Magic for Susans? And then also Randy Butternubs says, how hard was it to find Susans for the Magic for Susans bit? So you should explain that lest anyone is unfamiliar.
So early on in the writing phase for season 1, we wanted to have these little short bumper, like little 1-minute things that would go between the longer segments. And, we would put these cards up on the wall of pitches. And one of the cards that one of the writers came up with was just, how about we just do Magic for Susans? I was like, okay, please explain. No, there's nothing to explain. It's just magic for women, only women named Susan. So we were like, okay, well, we'll see when we run into a Susan. We ran into a Susan on the first shoot day by chance. And she was exactly like what you'd think a Susan would be like. So we were like, we have to make this a segment. So we put an ad on Craigslist for Susans. Are you Susan? Do you know anyone named Susan? Do you want to make $40 and have free lunch? They didn't know what they were coming to. Mm-hmm. And Susans are available. By and large, they'll show up. So that's where that came.
Are Susans Karens?
Mm-mm. Susans are Susans. Susans are... I'm sure there's some Karen-y Susans, but Susans, pay with a check. They talk to the manager.
Karens talk to the manager.
Yeah, they do. They yell at the manager.
Oh, Susans just talk to them.
Susans quietly ask the manager, can we check this math? But Karens make a big thing.
Right.
So Magic for Karens would be funny, but not in like a happy way.
Right.
Susans make you at least feel happy that Susans exist. Magic for Karens would be a little more, it would go viral more, but it would not be as enjoyable.
So with Magic for Humans, how do you find the people on the street that you talk to? Are they like the Susans? You do Craigslist, but with some of it, are you just approaching people on the street?
That's what the main goal is, to just approach people on the street. Sometimes in LA, the people you approach on the street are a little don't behave normally, like they're either actory or whatever, or they're very excited to be on your show, and then that's a bad sign. So Craigslist is kind of the best, where we don't tell people what the show is. So if it's like, hey, would you like to be a part of, a documentary we're shooting about technology or whatever kind of the misdirect is. So at least we get someone who's perked up about a topic and is willing to show up in a place to be, somebody to do magic for. Because the magic is kind of a great element of surprise if they don't know I'm a magician right at first. But the best people are always people you just wrangle on the fly. Hey, go get that guy,
The one where they're eating donut holes, what did they think they were?
Those were all just people we pulled off the sidewalk. Yeah. So they were, I think I told them we're shooting I think I lied. I was like, hey, it's Justin Willman from the Food Network. Hey, we're shooting a thing about sweets. Would you mind helping us out? A little eating competition. Roped him in.
Okay. And Craig TL wants to know, if you weren't a professional magician, what would you be doing as a job?
I would probably be, oh gosh, a weatherman.
Really?
Well, I went to school for broadcast journalism, thinking I wanted to be like an anchor or a news reporter, which is kind of magic adjacent. I mean, it's hosty, So, but then all that stuff was doing all the beat, covering your beat around Boston it was also kind of depressing and, mostly bad news. But although the weather is often, in Boston, especially bad news, at least you don't have to, you're the breath of fresh air in a newscast. So that was always kind of like, well, if this magic thing doesn't work out, I can learn. And I feel like I'm insulting weather people and meteorologists by just saying like, I can just be a weatherman. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot to do with it. There's probably a degree, I imagine, in meteorology that you have to have.
You got to be able to do that against
you got to be able to do this against a green screen.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all doing that
do
now in the
that.
Zoom world. I think so. We'll see. Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
So I know, I can't find it right now, but I know that someone wanted to know, how did you get the Food Network gigs? Like, how did all that come about?
Oh, yeah. That was like a random audition. That was, being in LA, like doing the magic. I would go out for hosting auditions as well, because I was kind of thought of just, hosting gig is kind of like doing magic without the tricks. I don't know, you're just kind of, keeping the thing moving. So that was a random audition for a pilot that I remember like in the waiting room, we're all kind of like, what is this, a show about cupcakes? Oh God, okay, this won't get picked up, but let's do it. And got picked up, got made, did 9 seasons. Who knew? Who knew?
When people recognize you on the street, what is it usually for?
It used to be for Cupcake Wars for a very long time, and still occasionally, but now it's mostly you're the magic guy, which is really all I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
The cupcake thing was so funny because at first when I'd be doing magic, people would be like, "Oh, the cupcake dude learned magic." And it's like, no, it's the other way around.
Justin, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you, Allison. This was really lovely.
It has been. Tell everyone where they can find you and what they should look out for, and do all your plugs.
I'm easy to find. JustinWillman.com is my website. That's where, tour dates are when we're live touring again.
Yeah, so
pick up your magic kit.
Right now, you have tour dates scheduled for December, right? That were rescheduled?
I do. We'll see if those happen. Actually, you know what I'm going to announce this weekend, but maybe this will come out after this weekend.
It will come out Monday.
Perfect. So I'm going to do a run of virtual shows.
Oh, cool.
Called Magic for Humans at Home, right here in my dining room. And I've kind of been crafting, how can magic adapt to this Zoom thing? So it's a show over Zoom.
Very cool.
With a big audience of people, very interactive. And I'm excited. Like, I know I've done a couple of comedy shows, where I've done my magic and people have been doing comedy, and I feel bad because the comedy really relies on real time back and forth, but magic somehow can adapt really well and still blow people's minds through the camera. So that's going to start up here soon, so people can get those dates on my website as well.
Nice.
Instagram, Justin Willman. My name on all the things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everyone, make sure you're subscribed to my podcast, subscribe to my other podcast as well, Childish. That's my parenting-ish podcast that I do with Greg Fitzsimmons. We'll probably hit you up to come on that show at some point
Do
since
that.
you're a parent.
I love Greg Fitzsimmons.
He's great, right?
He's so great.
And subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Alison Rosen, where you can see this video and other videos. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram @Alison Rosen. I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/Alison Rosen. And I'm on Cameo, cameo.com/Alison Rosen. And we know you're on Cameo. Are you just
I am.
Cameo.com/Justin Willman?
/Justin Willman.
All right.
It's kind of been fun. It's been fun. I mean, it feels good doing it for a good cause, but also like people really love, they love it, especially this time when it's like, what do I give so-and-so as a gift? It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I think it makes me feel happy.
It does.
All right, thank you again. Listeners,
you're so welcome.
Thank you for listening. I love you. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Alison Rosen Show?